Yo, imagine if zero point 0.1 Bitcoin could be enough to retire by 2029. Well, today we're going to be breaking down 3 different retirement strategies that Michael Saylor has revealed in his personal Bitcoin retirement calculator, which he made open source. We're going to be dropping a link for you guys in the video description. The name of this retirement calculator is Bitcoin 24, and it doesn't matter whether you're all in Bitcoin, own hundreds of Bitcoin, or whether you own a small fraction of a Bitcoin like 0.01 BTC. You're going to want to stick around to see all the different calculations we're going to be looking at in today's show, because everything has changed since we originally covered this topic many months ago. Think about it. The tariffs, the strategic Bitcoin reserve, literally one of the most bullish cycles in terms of news, one of the most depressing cycles in terms of price action. So we're gonna revisit this topic, and I know that you guys absolutely love it. This bull market has given us more time than we've had. So how much Bitcoin do you need to retire by 2029? Before we jump into it, I do want to bring up our special guest for today. We have Paul Rogers in the house. Paul Rogers is a former certified financial planner and author of Money Love Bitcoin. Opti, I'm going to need you to do a little bit of background producing while I pull up.
I got it. I don't know what happened with Rumble, dude. It always does this.
All right. Okay. So let's try to get the Rumble stream up and we're going to plug in some numbers and we're going to go through some definitions. And these are some of Saylor's definitions. And he actually did this presentation originally at Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville. And he defines a couple of different things, right? So first of all, there's the normie. The normie is someone who has 0% of their portfolio in Bitcoin. Then there's the BTC 10%, pretty self-explanatory. It's someone who has 10% of their portfolio in Bitcoin. Then there's the BTC maxi, who has 80% of the portfolio in Bitcoin and converts 80% of their excess earnings into Bitcoin. And then I would put me and Opti into this category. The double maxi category. So they have 100% of their portfolio in BTC and they have 100% of their excess earnings converted into BTC. And then there is the triple maxi. So the triple maxi is someone who has 100% of their portfolio in BTC, 100% of their excess earnings converted into BTC. But it's a little bit of a leverage in the sense that they're actually allocating, they're increasing their mortgage by a good amount just to put that into Bitcoin. So it is a little bit of a leverage play. I don't recommend leverage. It's not, this been doing this for 9 years, been in this industry for 9 years. Leverage is no bueno. I highly recommend against it. So we're going to, for the sake of this show, I'm assuming the majority of you guys fit into the in between the BTC 10 and the double maxi category. So for the sake of this example, we're going to go with double maxi. So double maxi is someone who has 100% of their portfolio in BTC, and we're going to plug in a variety of numbers, and then we'll do the math. We'll show you guys the chart. We'll show you guys the data. You guys are absolutely going to love this. So stick around, smash the like button. We are just getting started. So let's put in some figures here. So first of all, what is the starting amount of Bitcoin we're going to be using for this example? Paul, I'm going to pass it on to you. Did Paul drop out?
Oh, we lost him.
All right, so I'm going to pass it on to Paul. Hey, so Paul, yeah. I'm going to pass it on to you. What is the starting amount of BTC?
From the spreadsheet?
No, it could be anything.
I'm missing you.
It could be anything. So let's start off. Let's start off with 1, right? Let's start off with 1, and then we'll go to 0.01. We'll go to 0.1, and then it says assets excluding Bitcoin, and this is of course in 1,000 intervals, right? So for the sake of this, let's just say that you have 100K extra. You can plug in your earnings. Let's use the average salary here in the United States, which is about 60K. Then earnings growth, what I think is normal, and the income tax is around 40%. Let's move that, lower that to like 30%. And let's take a look at some of this data, right? So you start off with 1 Bitcoin, and I don't know why it says 2 down there. Hold on. That is weird. Yeah, okay. Okay. You know what it is? It's number of Bitcoin purchased. So let's put 0 there. There we go. Much better. All right. So number of Bitcoin, right? So you start off with 1, and this was originally in 2024. This was released during the Bitcoin Nashville conference. So you start off with 1 Bitcoin, and then based on the amount of income, the excess, the assets, excluding then the earnings and the earnings growth, it does the percentage, right? What percentage of that extra earnings you're going to put into Bitcoin. And over time, you'll be able to stack, but obviously Bitcoin's price gets higher. Now, what's really, really interesting about this is take a look at this forecast, right? And it plugs in Michael Saylor's scenario, right? Of the famous $13 million Bitcoin by the year 2045. So it's really interesting that, your earnings start to grow as, the years go by, if it follows Michael Saylor's, predicted compound rate of, I think initially it's around 40%. And then he says it's going to start stabilizing at the end of the decade around like 25%. And then it's going to stabilize around 20%. But as you can see, just with 1 Bitcoin, by the year 2045, if you continue to stack, right? You continue to grow your stack over time. You can continue to put a percentage of your earnings in Bitcoin, right? You end up with, here, according to this, $22 million. So Opti, if you can, while I continue to plug in numbers here, could you put Bitcoin 2024 or a link to it in the live chat so people can plug in their own numbers, depending on, their financial situation, of course. So
where's it at? Give me the link. Send link.
Just go Bitcoin 24 on Google, calculator. So let's go with Normie, right? And let's plug in some different numbers here. So with Normie, let's say you have 0.1 Bitcoin, right? And let's say assets excluding Bitcoin, let's say that's 0, right? You don't have any other savings. Say your earnings is 60K. Your earnings growth, with 0.1 Bitcoin in the year 2045, if Bitcoin hits, Michael Saylor's predicted price by 2045, his base case, which is $13 million per coin, 0.1 Bitcoin could be $2 million by the year 2045. By the year 2035, 0.1 Bitcoin could potentially be 1 million Bitcoin. $1 million. Is that overly bullish? Is that overly bearish? Please let us know down in the comments below. But we're going to plug in more numbers here. Let's plug in 5 Bitcoin. Here we go. Boom. 5 Bitcoin. And let's check it out. $68 million by the year 2045. By 2030, 5 Bitcoin would equate to roughly 2030. Paul, do you have any comments when we're looking at this? You were a financial planner.
Yeah.
Any comments, any thoughts? And just to give a little bit of context, this is based on Michael's model that he presented at Bitcoin 2024, where he made the case that the bear case for Bitcoin by 2045, by 2045 would be $3 million Bitcoin. The base case would be $13 million Bitcoin. The bull case would be $58 million Bitcoin. This is based on that, right? So, Paul, I'm going to hand the mic to you. What are your thoughts on all this, especially from someone who comes from the financial planning world? Is this overly ambitious? What's your take?
Well, it's given me flashbacks and a little bit of nightmares to, going through reams of data and spreadsheets like this and assumptions to help do that for regular people. and there's so many assumptions in this. And obviously, I think many of them are reasonable that Michael's using, but you also have to convert that N number to a purchasing power number and an assumed inflation rate. There's one way which says, how much do I have to get to until I can kick back, do nothing, and lead a decent lifestyle? That's a fair question. And the other one is, what else am I going to do with my money other than Bitcoin if I'm not spending as much as I make? And the reality is we still need to all be contributing value no matter what. And so the more value you contribute, the more you can put it in Bitcoin, and the better off you'll likely be, because nobody knows exactly what the future is going to look like. But if you understand enough that this is the best chance out there and the best asset that's going to grow and accumulate at some rate, then where else would you put the money? Not on any of the things that I used to put the money into.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree. I see someone in the chat. They're talking about when moon. So, Opti, let's share the when moon calculator. Shout out Jimbo. I actually saw him at the BitBlock Boom conference, and it breaks it down. It makes it a little bit easier than Sailor's Bitcoin 2024 calculator. I'm also going to put this in the live chat for you guys to play around with. But essentially it does exactly the same thing. So you put in what your stack size is. So let's leave this for one, your desired income in today's dollars. So what would be your desired income? So 200,000, 100,000, right? The annual USD supply increase. So the AKA inflation, what would be the estimated inflation, Paul, moving forward?
Well, if you're going to do an M2 money supply, 7 to 8% now, but you have to consider that may well be much more than that in the future. So that 12 number would be more conservative.
All right, so let's put that 12%. And then, Paul, I haven't asked you this question. What do you predict? And I know it puts you in a bit of a bind, but let's do a range. What would you expect would be the annual Bitcoin appreciation rate from here?
Yeah, the $64,000 question that nobody knows the answer to. So when I was planning, you do a low, middle, and a high range and a likelihood of success. And so, start low. If you have more than that, you're going to be happy and happier earlier. So call it 20% to start.
All right,
we hope it's going to be more like 40. And it's not unreasonable to do 40, but.
So, okay, so we put 20, we're going to do 20, we're going to do both. So your stack size would be 1 Bitcoin for the sake of this example. Again, you could plug in numbers based on your personal situation. Your desired income in today's dollars, 100,000. Annual USD supply increase, 12%. Annual Bitcoin appreciation rate, 20. And it does the math. So when moon is essentially when you'd be able to retire, when you'd be able to live off your Bitcoin. With these numbers, the year would be 2065. So a long time from now with these numbers. So we can change the metrics a little bit. Let's move this up to the 40. Let's make it a 40 and look at the difference. Major difference. But I would echo what Paul was saying, right? You got to plan for the worst. And you got to hit the conservative aspect first and then the more bullish aspect. And then we're going to do 30% to see where it lines up. So your personal boon date, if you have 1 Bitcoin or 100 million sats, right, would be the year 2032. You'd be able to start withdrawing your Bitcoin, and you'd be able to start withdrawing $100,000 a year. The year and your personal moon date would be 2032. Now let's move it to the annual Bitcoin appreciation rate of 30%, and again, not that bad. 2038. So 13 years from now, 1 Bitcoin, $100,000 you'd be able to withdraw, even with a 12% inflation rate. So these are crazy numbers, guys. If you have any examples you want us to plug into these calculators, please drop it into the chat, and we'll do just that. Feel free to plug in your numbers. We're dropping all the links to all these resources. So obviously, you know, it will fit your own particular financial situation. Let's use the thumbnail example. 0.0, was it 0.01 or 0.1, Opti?
0.1.
All right, let's do 0.1. All right, 100,000 and 2045. I mean, not bad at all. 2054. So not bad at all. With 0.1 Bitcoin, you'll be able, if Bitcoin continues to increase with the 30%, you know, yearly appreciation, 12% inflation rate in the United States, right? You know, the target inflation rate is roughly 3. Paul, let me ask you something. Why do you think it's 12%? If they're reporting that inflation is under 3% now, it's like at 2.2. Why are you saying that the inflation rate is 12%?
Well, I'm going to use M2 money supply as a better rate than the CPI. So that's why I say that's in the 7 to 8% range. But if you assume they're going to have to turn the money printer on even more with the debt levels and the spending levels we have, then we might be looking at more like 12. But you could put 8% in there, and that's going to dramatically change the numbers.
Yeah. What numbers do you suggest we put in here?
Put in 8 instead of 12.
All right, let's do 8.
Let's
do 8, and let's see how it changes. 2047. So 0.1 Bitcoin. Apparently, you'll be able to take out $100,000 a year, an 8% inflation rate, 30% annual Bitcoin appreciation rate, and by the year 2047, you'll be able to take out, you know, roughly $100,000. You know, if these numbers hold true. So it's really, really interesting. But I like what Paul was saying in regards to continuing to work, continuing to provide value. And I saw someone else in the chat say that too. Wait, I have better, Jim Johnson, absolute savage. I have better advice. Get a job. Yeah. So
he's a cash maxi. He's a cash maxi. So of course
is he a cash maxi?
Yeah.
So Dan says the Bitcoin price ought to be at 150K already. Yeah. So before we continue the show, Paul, and you know, cover the different topics and the different videos that we're going to go over today. Yeah, a lot of people were expecting the Bitcoin price to be a lot higher by now. Obviously, as Bitcoiners, we see that as a good thing, because it gives us more time to acquire or stack cheaper sats. But what is your own perception of this? Like, why hasn't the Bitcoin price? I mean, if you compare it to previous cycles, you can make a very strong case that Bitcoin, in fact, has been underperforming. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so no, it's a great question, and it's one we all want to know. What's the number going to be when? And the answer is nobody knows. So I was never a chart guy. When I was in the business, I was a fundamentals guy. And so, you know, look at the fundamentals. And I go back to, again, where else are you going to put your money that you think has a better rate of return and makes more sense as a store of value than Bitcoin? Knowing that our fiat currencies have been abysmal disasters, and with the present state of affairs, don't look like they're on a trajectory, even if something changes in the government and some plans go in to fundamentally make a difference. So where else are you going to put it? And, you know, I caution people, don't just try to play with those charts to come up with the numbers that you want to see, and then start going and tell your wife, hey, we're retiring in 2029 because look at these numbers. You know, that's setting yourself up for potential problem. If in 2029 you hit that number, great. You know, you can make that decision then. But again, you still have to add value, whether it's starting a business or having a job. You want to be doing something of value. And that's true even if you have enough Bitcoin that you don't have to do a job that you don't want to do anymore. You still want to be doing something of value with the rest of your life.
Yeah,
and sometimes
absolutely.
you may not know what that is. You know, I end up writing a book. I never expected to do that.
I think there's a ton of wisdom in what you're saying, right? Which is, you know, people. I think, and something that I've learned as I've gotten older. I think human beings naturally need purpose. I think you need a reason to get up in the morning. you can have $1 billion and you're going to get bored. I swear to God, I've seen this happen, with higher net worth people. You can have all the money in the world, and within 6 months, you will get tired of of vacationing. Yeah, I think human beings are builders. They need to build. They need a purpose. It's not the destination; it's the journey. And that's what I've seen and experienced.
Absolutely. It's about growing and evolving on the journey. And the journey changes. It has lots of twists and turns. The end destination is not something you can always define at the beginning of the journey, but it is a journey in life. And you've got to be contributing. You've got to be growing and evolving. And, if you're stagnant, it's not going to be a very exciting life.
No, I completely agree. Completely agree with you. So we covered, the essentially, why Bitcoin isn't performing. And my question to you is, Paul, I know that you're not in this business anymore, but if you were in this business and people were to ask you, hey, what percentage of my portfolio should I be allocating to Bitcoin? And we'll go through the different demographics of our audience. So majority of our audience are between the ages of 45 and 55. Second biggest majority are 35 and 45. So let's go through like the different demographics, because I think depending on your age, the strategies change, right? So let's start with 45 and 55, right? If you're between the ages of 45 and 55, Paul, and someone came up to you and said, "Hey, listen, I have a 401k, I have some equities, I have some stocks. I'm looking at Bitcoin, and I'm looking to, potentially put Bitcoin into my savings or into my future, my nest egg." What advice would you give them? And let's apply some of what Saylor was saying from the calculator that he put together. Would you say put 100%, sell all of your real estate, sell all of your equities, go straight up 100% into Bitcoin? What recommendation would you give someone between the ages of 45 and 55?
Yeah. And so it's a great question. And the issue is, if you understand it enough, and you do not have to be an economist to understand it, if you understand it enough and assess it compared to the other alternatives, then you can make a decision that when things don't go the way you want them to, and we have huge drawdowns, you stick with it and you stick according to the plan. If, on the other hand, and you see this in TradFi, and I saw it many times in my career, when the shit hits the fan and it doesn't go, you make an emotional decision and you pull out and you lock in your loss and you're toast. And so, people have to either have the education or the emotional ability to stand through the difficult times, because we're going to have them. Bitcoin cycles are there. Whether they're going to change and grow and shift, that's certainly possible. But we're going to have drawdowns. It's still a relatively new and volatile asset. So the more you learn and the more you understand, and frankly, that was the biggest value I did to most of my clients, which is not having to make emotional decisions. So, shows like yours and many others that help people understand are going to help people who go and push much more of the chips in than seemingly save 2 or 3% or 4%, which isn't going to get them that far. When you push more of the chips in, you got to understand that you're making an intelligent decision, not just a bet on you hope something happens, on the next roll of the dice.
So, but what would be that percentage allocation?
Yeah. Again, there's a sleep at night principle, which I used to tell my clients also. If you can't sleep at night, if your portfolio drops 10%, then you probably have too much in there. Now, it may mean you're going to have to work for the rest of your life, but you got to make those trade-offs. Again, I don't think there's anything better that's out there, assuming you're covering your current and near-term cash flow, your short and medium terms. I mean, you don't put the mortgage money that you have to pay the mortgage in tomorrow in Bitcoin. You're not going to put your kids' college education when you got to, break the tuition payment next month in a volatile asset, stocks or anything. But, I think you can be a lot further in than I know I ever thought I was going to be when you really understand it, because the other options just aren't that great. So, start with 5, start with 10, move it to 25, move it to 50. And who knows, pretty soon you may be at, 75% or more.
Yeah. Okay. 75%. You heard it. Okay. So that's 45 to 55. What about 35 to 45? Does that change?
Sure, because you've got a longer time horizon. You presumably have a career arc in which you are going to be continuing to earn money. Now, again, if your plan is, I want to be out in 5 years, that's a different animal. That's probably not a realistic expectation no matter what, unless you have a lot of liquid assets. But if you're earning and growing and you plan to raise a family and have excess more than you spend, then, the fluctuation from year to year and 4-year cycles or 10-year cycles don't really matter.
Yeah.
You can be full in. Okay.
100%. And then, all right. So Opti, this question to you, 25 to 35, my friend, what percentage allocation?
Literally everything you have besides paying your bills and your rent and your groceries should be in Bitcoin. Look, I have friends that, they're in their mid-20s and most of them have no money. A lot of them have decent jobs, but they still kind of are caught in the consumerist paycheck to paycheck mindset where they get some money and they buy something cool so that they feel good about themselves. And they'll look at me all the time and be like, bro, like, why aren't you buying things? I know you have some Bitcoin. You're probably doing pretty well for yourself. And I'm like, what, why do I need this? Nico makes fun of me for my truck. My truck's a beater and I can fully get a new truck, but I'm just like, why would I need it? It gets me from point A to point B. There's no need for this stuff for me right now. And I just keep thinking long term. One of my biggest fears is I have 2 huge fears. One is being an old guy with bad posture. That's one, my big personal fear is being a hunchback. Yeah, exactly. Sit up better as on the street. That's one of my fears, being an old guy with really bad posture. And the second one is literally having to work, at McDonald's when I'm 65 years old. And so everything I do is essentially thinking long term, will I have some savings when I'm old? But I do like what Paul said, because I've been saying this. I know guys are like, this is the exercise we've done in this class plenty of times, guys. But one of the things I always say is the same thing. It's I think I fundamentally don't believe in retirement. I've seen a lot of people, a lot of my dad's friends that, they hit the 65, 70 years old. They have some money. They've been working their whole life to retire. And then they go downhill very quickly after, 2 to 3 years. And then, they're 6 feet deep, 5 years later. And you're like, this guy seemed very healthy. He seemed on top of his game. And then right when they retired, it just went all downhill because they didn't have a purpose. And we've seen this kind of play out in studies as well, that when senior citizens or elderly people don't have kind of something. I don't really believe in electric cars, bro, but that's a totally different topic. But one thing that we did see is via studies is if you are, at retirement age and you don't have at the very least some kind of mental hobby to keep your mind sharp, you start to devolve very quickly. And it's incredible that we have this data here. And if I'm young, I'm in my mid-30s here, and it's very interesting to look at that Sailor chart, and everyone's saying saying you can retire on 0.1 Bitcoin is damaging the space. This is hopium. If you look at that chart, it said 0.1 Bitcoin by 2045. That's, 20 years from now. If you're around my age, that is a good retirement. We have the BlackRock data that says most people retire or need about $2 million to retire. So look, if Bitcoin does what we think it does, I think even the small amounts of Bitcoin that you may think you have will be enough to retire. And the whole name of the game is just trying to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible. Obviously, if you're young, live below your means. You don't need to flaunt your wealth. You don't need to buy these, social status symbols so that like you look wealthy. All you need to do is try to save as much Bitcoin as possible, and you're going to win long term. The real takeaway to all of this data, I think, is there is no such thing as retirement for us young people if you are saving in fiat. That's just like the big elephant in the room. There's no way to retire if you are saving in fiat. And for us, yes, I have a bias here. And of course, I'm going to confirm my own bias. I only believe in the data that confirms my own bias, guys. Come on. Like I'm just like everyone else. You need to have Bitcoin to retire. And the name of the game is get as much Bitcoin as you can. And so I did see a really good thread yesterday on Twitter. And it's like, look, you can get kind of caught up. And actually, this is going to go really good into what we're going to talk in the culture with Paul about this book he's wrote, is this idea that like, if you get caught up in the game of just trying to get as much Bitcoin as possible, you're still kind of stuck in the same fiat mindset. It's like, what's the goal of your wealth in the long term? Like, why do you need to acquire, 1,000 Bitcoin if you're just going to like sit on it and not do anything with it? Like, what's the point of this wealth that you're trying to acquire? Is it just to live a good life, be by the beach, and enjoy your life? Or is it, you want to be in a penthouse? Like, as long as you make these decisions and you know what you want, then you'll know how much Bitcoin you need. So I love that, Paul is confirming my own bias that maybe I am a little wiser beyond my years, because I've been saying the same thing for a long time.
I also dropped a poll in the chat. I said, do you think I should buy Opti a Model 3? And the majority,
everyone say yes.
52% of you guys have said no. So
wow, all right, let's stop the show. You guys.
I do want to give a shout out to the live stream, guys. We had some technical difficulties with Rumble. It wasn't Opti's fault today. So shout out to the Twitter live stream, 1,227.
Dude, I'm just taking L's on this show the whole day.
And 526 of you guys watching live on YouTube. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. We're at 132 likes on YouTube alone. Help us break 200 likes by the time we get to the 45-minute mark. So smash that like button. We're at 50% right now, Opti. 50% of the polls think you should get a Tesla Model 3, and 50% believe no. So, wow.
How about something with gas? All right, switch it up. Something with gas in there.
Why is people don't want you to get free things, man? So, guys, we got a loaded show for you guys today. It's going to be absolutely amazing. We have a clip of Gary Gensler. It's so weird. The legacy financial media has brought on Janet Yellen and Gary Gensler, to ask for their comment. They're not even in government anymore. What's going on? Donald Trump and the Fed are fighting. Trump is calling for the Fed for Jerome Powell to be fired. It's absolute mayhem, bananas. And of course, during the culture segment, we're going to take advantage of the fact that we got Paul Rogers in the house. He's the author of Money, Love, and Bitcoin. Before we went on air, we were starting to talk about some of these topics, and they were absolutely fascinating. So you guys are going to want to stick around. It's going to be an incredible show. Smash that like button. Someone in the chat says Opti deserves more than a Tesla. I 100% agree with that, but apparently you
Tesla fanboy though.
Apparently you guys don't agree with that. Opti needs to take a bus. Oh my God, poor Opti. All right, everybody. I want to give a shout out to Simply Bitcoin's lead sponsor. Guys, Simply Bitcoin would not be possible without our partners. So if you guys want to support the show, guys, go check out our partners. We're very picky on who we choose to partner with. We recommend Bitcoin Well. It's the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack. Buy real Bitcoin today. Enable your independence. This is a self-custody by default Bitcoin on-ramp. If you go to bitcoinwell.com/simply, if you use that link to sign up to Bitcoin Well, you will literally get an opportunity to win up to 1 million Satoshis. So go to bitcoinwell.com/simply today. Also, if you're a higher net worth individual and you're looking to buy $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or more, and you want a tailored white glove experience, go check out bitcoinwell.com/OTC. And the reason this is so special is because you're going to have a dedicated account representative that's going to walk you through the entire process of buying Bitcoin, putting it into self-custody, and you can text them or call them every time you want to buy or sell Bitcoin. It's super white glove. It's super personalized. I highly, highly recommend it. Go to bitcoinwell.com/OTC to get started today. And also, every time you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn something called Bitcoin Well points. And you can use those points towards the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest, which we're going to be doing it live for you guys right now on air. And by the way, the more you acquire these points, and the way that you do that is you buy Bitcoin. So you buy Bitcoin, you get points. You set up a recurring buy, you get points. Your first transaction, you get points. And if you earn 69 million points, you can win an orange Cybertruck. 30,000 points, you can get a Simply Bitcoin hoodie, which are currently out of stock. So if you want to get a Simply Bitcoin hoodie, you got to get those points. So we're going to do this live for you guys right now, live on air. We're going to toss a coin into the wishing well. Get your Lightning wallets ready. First person to scan the QR code has won 210 sats. To get started, go to bitcoinwell.com/simply. You get 3 tosses into the wishing well. Every toss, you have an opportunity to win 1 million Satoshis. All right, everybody, let's get to the numbers. Let's start the show. We'll be right back.
I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stamp Seed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water. They put a blowtorch to it. And as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today.
All right, everybody, scan the QR code on your screen right now. It'll take you directly to the stampseed.com website where you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off. Store your seed phrase the correct way. Don't write down your seed phrase on paper. Stamp it into titanium. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is literally flat at $85,000. Block height, 892,863. Sats per dollar, 1,176. Market cap, 1.69 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 7.17%. Percentage issued, 94.53%. Declined from all-time high, negative 22.1%. Realized monetary inflation, 0.85%. In the grand scheme of things, Bitcoin is just getting the party started. Anyways, I have a video for you guys of Gary Gensler on Legacy Financial Media. I don't know why they bring this guy on still, but they do. Let's check out the clip and then we'll talk about it.
This is a very small part of the financial markets, but if you were interested in this, think about every financial asset sort of trades on a bit of fundamentals and sentiment. But this field is almost 99, or maybe one might say 100% sentiment and very little on fundamentals. And while something like Bitcoin may persist for a long time because there's 7 billion people around the globe, a real keen interest in it, there's 10 or 15,000 others of these tokens. And to think through your own risk, your own personal risk about where are the fundamentals. And if this is just about sentiment, then generally those don't end up well, and most then go down.
Are you talking, you're contrasting Bitcoin with the other ones, or they're all the same?
Joe, I'm glad that you spoke up, because I know you're a bit of a Bitcoin enthusiast and think less well of the rest of those. It's how you and I have always connected in the green rooms. But think of these 10 or 15,000 other tokens, and just on the economics, just on the fundamentals, what are the fundamentals?
No, I know. But that was my question. You throw Bitcoin in with the rest of them, or do you think Bitcoin is different is qualitatively different than the others?
I think there's the distinction is similar to in metals. There's only 2 or 3 precious metals. We humans have a certain fascination with 2 or 3 precious metals like gold. I don't think we humans will have a fascination with 10 or 15,000 meme or sentiment tokens traded.
So Gary Gensler, Bitcoin maxi, confirmed. Gary Gensler's a Bitcoin maxi. Opti is totally vindicated. Yeah, I mean, bro, but like, I would say, fine. Okay, look, talk is cheap, actions are expensive. During the previous administration, the Bitcoin industry got attacked left and right, including by the SEC. The SEC had a lot of cases, and they were just attacking our industry, man. So yeah, like it sounds nice, sounds great, but you know, talk is cheap, actions are expensive. That's not what I saw during the previous administration, specifically the behavior from the SEC. Now what we got, and again, you know, the pendulum swings hard, is we got like complete laissez-faire, you know, the president is dropping meme coins, and including the president of Argentina. So like it's swung in the other direction, which you could make an argument is not good too. If I had a choice between like total just, you know, free market, even the president is going to launch a meme coin, or our industry getting attacked, I'm gonna choose complete laissez-faire, you know, anything goes, rather than a regulatory crackdown, which we got. You know, we got the freedom of Ross, the end of Operation Toke 2.0, the repeal of SAB 121. Like, so yeah, like it's nice to hear from Gary Gensler, but they had 4 years. They had 4 years, and they had the opportunity to win another election and continue a lot of the Biden policies under Kamala Harris. And, you know, people just didn't want that. And again, from a political perspective, that's not the point of this show. That's not why you guys tune into Simply Bitcoin. We only started talking about it when we felt the industry was under attack, and it clearly was last year. And of course, that it forced Bitcoiners to throw our political hat in the ring. Now we have a seat at the table. If you don't have a seat at the table, you're not in the deal. You're not in the room. You're not in the deal. Now we're in the room, which is great. You know, you have David Bailey, you have Michael Saylor going to the White House. This is a much better position from a regulatory perspective than we were last year. But again, it's complete. It's a shitcoin extravaganza. It's Bitcoin and shitcoin extravaganza. Now, to be fair, the strategic Bitcoin reserve was just that, a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And then the altcoins are in a stockpile, whatever the F that means. So yeah, I mean, it's great. It's good. But talk is cheap, Gary. Talk is cheap. You had 4 effing years. You had 4 years, bro. You could have protected us. You could have been like, you know what? Let's go after the altcoins. The altcoins are security. Let's protect Bitcoin. Leave Bitcoin alone. But that's not what happened. That's not what happened. The developers were arrested. Like the mining industry was attacked. You know, all these exchange CEO, Arthur Hayes, CZ, all of them arrested. You know, like it was gnarly. It was the other extreme, right? So why does everything have to be so extreme? Why can't it be some like happy medium? You know, it has to be either the president launching meme coins or we go to jail. Like, why can't it be in the middle? I don't know why. Anyhow, I'm going to open it up. And again, like one extreme isn't better than the other, because like if you have like complete like president is going to launch meme coins, like look at what happened to the Trump coin. it dropped like 70%. Now, was Trump 100% behind the Trump coin? I don't think so. I think someone pitched him the idea. He was like, yeah, that sounds cool. He's a 78-year-old man. Like, what does he know? Right? So, like, this is nuts. Gary Gensler, a little too late, man. You had the opportunity to speak up and protect us, and you didn't do it, Gary. What are your thoughts, Paul?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's a damn shame that we care what any of them have to say and that they can have so much influence on the markets and the economy and our life savings. So that's a problem we got to fix at the beginning. But, it ultimately depends on, are you trying to walk into a crypto casino and hit black 36 and walk away with a big payoff, just out of luck or extraction? Are you really looking for a whole new base layer of money for a global financial system? And, it's pretty clear which one meets the criteria of a potential global monetary system and all the others that don't even pretend to do that and never will. So, if you look at it that way, Gary should have been a lot clearer. Everyone should have been a lot clearer. But, we live in a world where people want to protect their asses and they want to protect the system they've got and their friends and their cronies and the existing fiat structure. And so you get decisions that look like what we've gotten until the winds change. And clearly the winds have changed, even though you still got the crypto casinos going on.
Yeah, that's a great take from Paul. Opti, this is your buddy. You put up the ticker. You said Opti was vindicated. Opti's taking over the show. No, I don't know where you put the ticker. But the point is, you said Opti was right. Gary Gensler's a maxi. I mean, bro, for him being a maxi, bro, like he kind of let us down, dude. Like,
I mean, look. When I first said this, I was like legitimately trolling. Obviously, in hindsight, you can make, you can spin whatever narrative you want. That's what I was doing. But if you listen to that clip, it does sound like he knows exactly the difference between Bitcoin and all the other shit coins. And this is kind of where I was basing my troll this whole time. He taught a class at MIT on Bitcoin and blockchain. He was obviously very aware. And when Gary Gensler got put into the head of the SEC, a lot of Bitcoiners were very excited about this because they knew that he was teaching about it. So they thought that he'd actually have, maybe more of a nuanced take on this. Now, granted, Nico, you are right. There was a lot of bad things that he did. But if you look back in hindsight, again, this is all in hindsight. It is very, very interesting when you kind of compare the difference between what Gary did and what we're seeing now. Is like, if you do kind of go with the assumption that he was a Bitcoin maxi, then a lot of the stonewalling and the feet dragging that we saw around the Bitcoin ETF would lead me to believe that maybe he was kind of slow walking the Bitcoin ETF because he was trying to find a way to figure out how not to unleash all of the shit coins in ETFs, which now this is where we are. So like, I do agree with you, Nico. On the one hand, it's like, yes, would I'd rather have, a SEC that is kind of walking on eggshells and being like, okay, this Bitcoin thing's good and everything else is kind of bad. Now we kind of have to dampen this Bitcoin thing so that everything else doesn't get in the door, or essentially just like unleash the floodgates here and be like, it's all free game. Bitcoin's going to win on its own merits. And hey, if you want to gamble on some shit coins, like, you're going to get wrecked. But, in hindsight, just for entertainment purposes, I think Gary Gensler is a maxi, as you can see here. And I think the real signal here was what he said to Joe Kernan about, like, this is where we bonded in the green room about this. So it seems like publicly he was saying what needed to be said to kind of protect his job. And privately, he's like, yeah, it's Bitcoin. Obviously, it's Bitcoin. But when I go out there, I can't really say that because we weren't in an environment, a political environment, like a public consensus environment. As Nico liked to say, the Overton window wasn't shifted enough where he could just go full Bitcoin. But, obviously, Nico, you are right. Like, actions are louder than words. But, I love taking this moment for a victory lap and dunking on Nico and being like, I was right. You know, Gary Gensler was a Bitcoin maxi.
No, he wasn't, dude. No, dude, talk is so cheap. No, like, dude, under his watch, the SEC was terrible towards our industry. It was horrible. That's not, if he was a maxi, he would not have allowed that to happen. Or you could make the argument that there was that much pressure from the White House, but regardless, he was the head of the SEC. Look, we went from one extreme to the other because of how extreme they made it in the first place. Look, less than a year ago, if you go from a year, like April of 2024, Bitcoiners did not give a flying F about who was in the White House. We were in our own little bubble, right? It wasn't until the samurai guys got put in a box that enough of us got pissed off where, someone's saying I'm saying laissez-faire wrong. Laissez-faire. There you go. Happy now? So enough of us got pissed off that, we were forced to do something. I'm also getting pressure to shill our Substack, which I'm going to do right now. So, guys, we do have a Substack. It's awesome. Some pretty cool writings have been dropping from it. Go check it out. Search Simply Bitcoin on Substack and you'll find it. And some of the latest writings have been pretty cool. So go check it out. Opti does all the thumbnails. So if you dislike the thumbnails, just make sure to DM Opti.
Why am I getting thrown under the bus all day? This is incredible. This is insane. Hashtag free Opti.
Go check out our Substack. It's awesome. And of course, smash that like button if you guys are enjoying the show. I'm just kidding, Opti. Let's take a look at Opti's poll. Let's see how it's doing. Let's check it out. Here we go. Do you think I should buy Opti a Model 3? 53% have said yes, Opti. 53%. For some reason,
I'm 51% attacking the YouTube chat today.
This is like a presidential election. It's going down the line. 47% of you guys. What's wrong with you? I would think it's 100%.
They don't like electric vehicles.
Why do you not want Opti to get a nice new car? I don't understand.
All right, just keep it rolling. My chain can only take so much. Keep it rolling.
2,000 of you guys watching live. You guys enjoying the show so far? Smash that like button. We're on the verge of breaking 200 likes. I'm going to move the goal up. 250 likes by the time the show ends. Smash that like button. We have tons to talk about. We're going to hit the news segment. We will be right back. We have tons to talk about. Let's check it out. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Casa. Casa makes self-custody easy and secure. As a Bitcoiner, I care about holding my own private keys, but multi-sig can sometimes get tricky. Casa nails it with a multi-key security. So even if one key gets lost or stolen, your Bitcoin stays safe. And you don't give up custody, meaning no one could access your Bitcoin but you. No seed phrase anxiety, no single point of failure. I've been telling my friends and family about Casa for years. Their UX and UI on their app is by far the best in the industry. Inheritance planning is built in, and they even offer Casa for Business if you're thinking about a Bitcoin treasury. Hit up casa.io today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 10% off Casa Standard or Casa Premium. Head over to casa.io. I want to give a shout out to our partner, CoinKite. If you take your Bitcoin security seriously, you'll need the best Bitcoin hardware wallet on the market to take self-custody. That's where Cold Card comes in. The Cold Card Q is the most advanced Bitcoin signing device ever made. It's got a full keyboard, larger screen, and NFC support, making air-gap signing easier than ever. It's built for power users who want the ultimate security without sacrificing usability. And if you're looking for a battle-tested, uncompromising cold storage, the Cold Card MK4 is your go-to with PSPT signing, an industrial-grade secure element, and USB-C. It's the perfect blend of security and convenience. Both devices
devices are, of course, 100% Bitcoin only, open source, and built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Secure your Bitcoin the right way with the Cold Card Q and the MK4. Head over to coldcard.com today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 5% off anything on the store.
All right, everybody, this is Opti, and he's currently modeling the most beautiful, the best hardware wallet in the Bitcoin industry, the Cold Card Q. It is incredibly easy to use. It has an A to Z keyboard, has a battery pack in the back. It allows you to scan Bitcoin transactions, sign for them. You can do it with a little tap with an NFC chip. You can do it. You can do it with a USB. It's incredibly easy. Highly recommend it. Get the MK4 or the Q. Use promo code SIMPLY to get 5% off anything on the coldcard.com store. All right, everybody, let's get to today's news. We have tons to talk about. And breaking it seems like Opti will be getting a Tesla. 53% holding strong. 53%. What is?
Hold them to it. Actually, I like my truck though, but whatever.
All right. So Opti keeps the truck. Opti just confirmed. Opti is keeping the truck. I'm ending the poll. All right. Confirmed.
Change the poll to a Lambo and see how that changes the numbers.
Yeah, it's because they don't like Tesla, Nico. They don't like.
Yeah,
change
it to a Lambo. Based on the spreadsheets earlier, you can afford it. So. Come on, step it up.
No, I don't have any Bitcoin. Right? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we're LARPing here. We don't own Bitcoin.
Yeah. We also got Klesh in the chat. Huge YouTuber, man. Thank you for joining us, bro. I appreciate it. Anyhow, Panama City approves Bitcoin and crypto payments for taxes, fees, and permits. Let's check it out. In yet another milestone for Bitcoin adoption in LATAM, the Panama City Council has voted to approve the acceptance of Bitcoin and other digital currencies for municipal services, making it the first public institution in the country to do so. The news was announced by Panama City Mayor Masrashi on X, who stated, quote, Panama City Council has just voted in favor of becoming the first public institution of government to accept payments in crypto. Citizens will now be able to pay taxes, fees, tickets, and permits entirely in crypto, starting with BTC, ETH, USDC, and USDT. This decision sets Panama on a more progressive path, enabling residents to interact with their local government using Bitcoin for everyday transactions. The governor also explained how this was achieved without the need for new legislation, a hurdle that had stalled previous efforts. Quote, prior administrations tried to push a bill in the Senate to make this possible, but we found a simple way to do it without new legislation. Legally, public institutions must receive funds in dollars, so we partner with a bank who will take care of the transaction, receiving in crypto, and convert on spot to dollars. This allows for the free flow of crypto in the entire economy and entire government. So pretty cool stuff. But again, why would you pay your taxes in Bitcoin if you could just do it in fiat? Also, across the pond, U.S. policy on stablecoins more dangerous than tariffs. It goes on to say, the U.S. policy on stablecoins offers European citizens an attractive payment method for cross-border transactions, which should trigger more concern than trade tariff. Italy's economy minister said on Tuesday, addressing an event in Milan on asset management. European authorities should adopt further steps to boost the status of the euro as an international reference currency and complained about the fragmentation of the EU's payment system. U.S. President Donald Trump has pledged to overhaul rules on cryptocurrencies and reverse a crackdown on the sector that took place under his predecessor, Joe Biden. Dollar-pegged stablecoins, which are a type of cryptocurrencies designed to maintain a constant value, have ballooned in recent years. I can't echo this enough, guys. The amount of stablecoin, whether Opti likes this or not, but it's just the reality. The amount of stablecoin adoption that is happening in the developing world in the global south is massive. It's huge. And it's because for the first time, people have access to what they perceive is a stable. Think about it. In the US, we know that the dollar ain't stable. It's going down forever in purchasing power. But if you live in a country with double-digit inflation, if you're dealing with 10, 20, 30% inflation, like you need to seek an alternative to survive. A stable coin is a godsend, right? And that's why I believe you're having so much stablecoin adoption in the developing world in the global south. But I do believe it is a stepping stone towards Bitcoin because it gets their feet wet with a digital wallet, a digital assets in the first place. And then they'll come to the same realizations that we've come to in the West. Even if you live in Europe, even if you live in the US, you're like, the dollar's a scam, right? So eventually I think that realization is going to happen worldwide. Anyways, the general focus these days is on the impact of trade tariffs. However, even more dangerous is the new US policy on cryptocurrencies, and in particular, that on dollar-denominated stablecoins. So if you break it down where the two continents are going, Europe is doubling down on central bank digital currencies. That's what they want. They've said that. The head of the European Central Bank, Christine Lagarde, is all about the CBDCs. They're doubling down on that. And the US is taking a different approach. The Trump administration, one of the first executive orders, explicitly forbidding the government from releasing a central bank digital currency. Also, very pro Bitcoin, pro stablecoin regulation. So the US is going down the stablecoin route, which in my opinion, it's just an extension of the dollar. Stablecoins don't give you censorship resistance. Stablecoins don't give you inflation-proof money. It's the same thing, essentially, right? If they want to freeze your account, they can freeze your account. If you have stable coins, if you have whatever, one of the two, Circle or the Gemini dollar or the Tether, whatever, and for whatever reason, a regulatory body is like, freeze that person's account, they could totally do that, right? So it's not immune from politics at all, and it's not immune from inflation, right? But if you've been living in where I'm originally from, Venezuela, or if you live in Zimbabwe, you're dealing with double-digit inflation. A dollar is a whole lot better than your local currency. That's the reality, right? And then, so you're really seeing two different approaches. The United States is doubling down on stable coins. That's how they see the spread of the dollar worldwide. It's working. That policy is working. And then what Europe is heading down, the path that Europe is heading down, is doubling down on the CBDCs. I think it's going to be an absolute catastrophic failure. And instead of politicians looking within and asking themselves, hey, why are people not using CBDCs? I think what they're going to do is they're just going to lash out and they're going to blame people for choosing an alternative. I mean, that's exactly what happened in Nigeria. We gave you guys the example of Nigeria, right? They launched a CBDC called the e-Naira. What happened with the e-Naira? No one used it. And when no one was using it, they literally arrested one of the executive members of Binance that was within the country, and they blamed Binance for the failure of their CBDC, which was not the case. Binance was just an off-ramp so that people could use an alternative, right? Now, how does all this relate to Bitcoin? Because I think eventually, all roads lead to Bitcoin. It's better money. But I think that if you don't have the financial privilege of being able to save, keyword there, being able to save, then, you're not really thinking about putting some money on the side and putting it into Bitcoin. You're thinking about being able to put food on the table. And I think this is something that caught a lot of Bitcoiners off guard because the original theory, at least to when I got in, was the developing world is going to love Bitcoin because it's better than their local currency. But what actually ended up happening instead by market forces was the adoption of stablecoins instead. But there is a small adoption of Bitcoin. But I think as time progresses and and all of these economies start to dollarize, I think more and more people are going to start to wake up and say, hey, you know what? The dollar was better initially, but Bitcoin is just better in general, right? So this is why I say all roads inevitably lead to Bitcoin. It's a stepping stone. In my opinion, it's a Trojan horse. And we're going to see what happens. But it is really interesting from like a geopolitical standpoint, how the two continents are taking a different approach. Like how Europe is doubling down on the CBDC strategy for whatever reason they think that's a good idea. And then the United States is like, the stable coin, which is a more kind of free market approach, but they're like, oh, the stable coins is a good idea. So Paul, I want to get your thoughts on this. Very interesting phenomenons overall. What is Europe doing? They're doubling down on this idea that requires coercion in order for it to work. Because without coercion, people aren't willingly going to use inferior money. Paul, what's your take?
Well, I think it's a great tee up, and it's a great question and issue. And I think there's two things here. There's a technology that's more effective, so people will adopt it. And again, when you, as you pointed out, when you live in places that do not have a technology of money which is effective for basic transactions, you seek something better, and a stable coin can do that. The other side of it, though, is money as a control vehicle. And I think both with stable coins backed by US Treasuries and a CBDC in Europe, you have to see that there is still a common thread of control that is not necessarily so different between the two, because the biggest buyer or a huge buyer of US Treasuries now, which the US government needs, is stable coins. So it continues the perpetuation of dollar hegemony. Now, a direct CBDC is a more aggressive control mechanism because it's the ability to be able to restrict and control digitally how people use their money. It's more aggressive, but I think it is a common thread of control. And if you couple a better technology with less control, that system is ultimately going to win out, even though, as you say, we may have a transition period for things like stablecoins.
Yeah, very, very, very good insight from Paul. Opti, what's your take on this, brother?
Yeah, so first of all, to kind of jump off your last point, Nico, I think the very interesting part about these two different news stories, and we're seeing more and more news stories kind of come out in a very similar vein, is the geopolitical ramifications that we're seeing right now. It's like we're seeing, Europe and the EU essentially do whatever they can to spite Trump, but in reality, they're just kind of hurting themselves, and it's kind of really sad to see them, go down this path. But I'm obviously not surprised at this point from everything we've been seeing and covering the last couple of years. It's not surprising on that front, but it is interesting to see the global game theory play out here, where as Trump came out and endorsed Bitcoin and talked about a strategic Bitcoin reserve and being the Bitcoin superpower of the world, we're seeing some countries very clearly look into Bitcoin, maybe objectively in some sense, or at least looking at it in a way where how can this actually benefit our country, benefit our people? And you love to see it. Obviously, Bukele was the one to initially kick that first domino, and now we're seeing that other countries are taking it very seriously. We know Czech Republic is I think kind of very innovative there, and they're kind of taking the charge there, and hopefully that the US follows suit in that front. And then we're seeing the opposite. People just like either they don't know or they're just so hell-bent on control that they're doubling down on the CBDC route. And hey, you know, on the one hand, you kind of hate to see it because this is going to hurt more people. And as a Bitcoiner, you just want more people to hold Bitcoin because of what we believe it is. You know, number go up, brings in freedom go up, brings responsibility go up. And we'll talk about this in the culture in a minute and how we think that Bitcoin will actually usher in a better world. And that's kind of, you know, as a Bitcoiner, my original stance. Now, I know Nico and I kind of have different stances on stable coins in general. So like on the one hand, as a Bitcoiner, I want to see more people adopt Bitcoin. Now, I understand this kind of step theory of people adopting stable coins first and then they go into Bitcoin. It's just in reality, we kind of haven't seen that. It seems like a lot of people are either going to be complacent or they just don't really care. And they're like, hey, like we all know, well, at least as Bitcoiners, like we all know the dollar is the biggest shitcoin in the world, but it's better than all the other currencies and fiat currencies that people are allowed to use. So on one hand, they're moving towards the right direction. On the other hand, you know, it's not enough. And of course, I believe all roads lead to Bitcoin. They will all learn eventually that they need to get to Bitcoin. Now, so as a Bitcoiner, I just want to see more people adopt Bitcoin. Now, as an American, I kind of like Tether in that front. It's like it's going to continue the dollar dominance in the world. It's going to maintain our position as superpowers and people using the dollar, which, you know, again, as a Bitcoiner is not really what I got into this for. Like, I want to end the Fed. I want people to adopt Bitcoin. I want Bitcoin to be the currency of the world, the money of the world that everyone can save in. But we do know that, you know, Tether is one of the biggest treasury buyers in the world. So they are essentially propping up the dollar to prop up the adoption of Bitcoin. And, you know, like, as an ideological Bitcoiner, maybe this isn't what I want to see, but as a pragmatic Bitcoiner and like a realist here, this is where we are right now. This is the game. This is how things are played out. So on an ideological level, yes, there's things that I wish would be different, but on a pragmatic level, it's like, this is where we are and this is how things are happening. And so I'm not going to hate on Tether, because like, Paolo's a Bitcoiner. Tether's literally the most profitable Bitcoin company in the world. And you can argue whether they are or not, but they're Bitcoiners. And I think, what is it? What's the metric, Nico? By employees at Tether, they're literally the richest company in the world.
They're most profitable company in the world. And by the way, I do want to give a shout out to Tether too, because they just announced that they're switching all of their miners to the Ocean mining pool, right? And that one of the things that's happening right now, we were just at Mining Disrupt. I had an interview with Luke Dash Jr., a keynote, and a fireside chat. And people underestimate. One of the things that stuck with me with Luke Dash was, like, he said, Nico, at this point, there's a less than a 10% chance of Bitcoin succeeding. And the reason that really impacted me was because, you know, you would think that we passed all these regulatory hurdles, right? Like, you know, the White House is basically announcing, hey, you know, Bitcoin's going to be a strategic reserve, end of Operation Choke Point 2.0. You have the acceptance by BlackRock. You have the acceptance by public companies. Bitcoin was made legal tender in a nation state. So you would think we're past a lot of these hurdles, so to speak. But, big but, what people have not seen is the mining pool centralization. If you take a look at the mining pools, and I'm going to try to pull it up while I speak to you guys about this, it's pretty crazy right now. I don't think it's ever been this bad. And let me pull this up. I can describe what I'm talking about so you guys can understand what Ocean is trying to solve. So 33% of the hash rate is found by Foundry USA, and Antpool Bitmain is 18%. So if you add those two pools together, that's more than 50% of the hash rate.
Well, and it's also worse because some of those other pools are essentially Antpool and H2 pool and stuff. So yeah, it's crazier than that.
I can't emphasize enough how important, you know, what Ocean is trying to solve, with decentralizing mining pools, decentralizing Bitcoin mining, right? It's so important because essentially, if Foundry and Antpool teamed up, they couldn't technically censor transactions because you would need to have 100% of, you know, the pool, the hash power, but they could definitely slow certain transactions down and say, listen, this is not approved by this transaction is not approved by the US government. You know, we're not going to mine it. We're not going to add it into the block. So mining pool centralization is like a big effing deal. And I think that's something to kind of pay attention to. Anyhow, guys, we still have a lot to talk about. We have the author of Money, Love, and Bitcoin joining us today, Paul Rogers, former certified financial planner, on the show. And during the culture segment, we are going to be talking about his book. And let's jump straight into it. Here we go. We'll be right back. I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. Need liquidity without having to sell your Bitcoin? For more than 6 years now, Ledn has been the trusted choice for Bitcoin-backed lending with transparency, security, and trust at their core. I absolutely love these guys, and I personally not only have an account with them, but also a loan. And some of the key features that I love about Ledn is the fact that there are no monthly payments. You pay at the end of the term. You also have the ability to roll over the loan as well, and you can pay it back whenever you want. Essentially what they do is that they help their clients unlock the liquidity of their BTC, allowing you to hodl while still accessing the wealth of your Bitcoin. They've been battle tested with their focus on transparency, security, and trust, allowing them to build a proven track record of client success and security, helping tens of thousands of clients harness the value of their digital assets with confidence and peace of mind. Learn more about what your BTC can do for you today. Simply Bitcoin viewers get 0.25% off their first loan by using the link in the video/podcast description. What are you waiting for? Head over to ledn.io today. All right, everybody, we are back. I do want to give, before we jump into it, I do want to give an update to the poll. I did ask everybody, should I buy Opti a Lambo? 54% of you guys said no. And I'm going to end the poll right there.
All right. Let's kick everyone out of the chat.
You are destined to get a Tesla and not a Lambo. Sorry, it had nothing to do with gas. I'm just surprised. I thought I was the hated one on the show, Opti.
Honestly,
I thought I was the odd duck.
You're definitely the ugly one.
I thought Opti is no longer with Simply. I thought I was, I was the hated one. I thought I was the unpopular one, but apparently Opti, people just don't want you to get, free things, bro.
This is why we can't have nice things, Nico. This is exactly the point. Anyways, let's change this topic.
Sophie's in the chat. Tesla Opti. Tesla Opti.
All right, guys. Okay. My ego can only take so much here, guys. Let's redirect this information and this conversation here. So, Paul, thank you so much for coming. I know we're being a little silly on today's show, but Paul, you are a former certified financial planner and now the author of Money, Love, and Bitcoin. So I think let's just start with what caused you to write this book, and if people get it, what will they learn from it? What's the main message here?
Sure. So, the title of my book's got 3 words in it. And even if you don't know that much about Bitcoin, not your audience, you know that money and Bitcoin are somehow connected. But there's this funny word in the middle, love. And most people ask, what the hell is that doing in there? Do I love money? Do I love Bitcoin? But that's not the kind of love I'm talking about. I look at that old question that's before your days, but Tina Turner asked that question, what's love got to do with it, in that famous song? And my answer is, I think it's got everything to do with it. Because the reason I wrote the book is, all the dialogue that we have in this space is important signal about what the number is, what the adoption rates are, how the regulatory system is involved in approving or not approving Bitcoin, how it's playing out. That's critically important and relevant. And if we want to move between that meme of fixing the money and fixing the world, I think there's a gap there that isn't just, it's not an equation. Fix the money equals fix the world. I think we fix the money, we build a much better foundation upon which to fix the world. But to fix the world and to begin to think about new institutions and structures built on an improved technology of money, we've got to think about deeper, more universal principles that are going to appeal to everyone. lots of the inside baseball or shop talk about economics and monetary policy don't mean anything to that mom who's from those TikTok and videos and Instagram videos, who's sitting behind the wheel of her car in tears, working 2 or 3 jobs, trying to figure out how she's going to feed her kids and just get by. And so that helps tee up the problem statement. But, you know, most people are confused by all this stuff, and they rely on a lot of experts. So we educate them as much as we can about the why of money and a better form of it. But we also, and that's, there's a saying that pain pushes and vision pulls. So that's the pain that's going to push people into being receptive to a new technology. But we also have to have a vision of what happens. What happens when we get to hyper Bitcoinization? What happens if we have, as you say in your work, that peaceful revolution? What then does our social structure or institutions look like? What are the principles that they're built on? Because if we don't talk and discuss and consider leaning more into more profound principles and leaning away from the things that have created the structures we have, like fear and greed and getting what I can and scarcity and extracting value from others, if we lean into those things, you know, I'm afraid that no matter how great a technology of money is, we're just going to recreate some of the ills of the current system. But if instead we lean into things like love, we lean into respect for each individual on this planet as a unique life source with a different contribution of value that they're going to make, however others may assess that, if we respect their individuality, but if we also understand that we do live in community, there is no standalone sovereign individual. We are part of a system. And that system, in my view, should function for everyone, not just a few. And we've never had this amazing technology of Bitcoin to build this new, transparent, permissionless, trustless, more equitable system. And I don't mean it equal, but equitable system that we can build new structures on. And so if we can talk also, in addition to the problems, but also about a new vision for society, for our institutions, because we're going to have to create them. If you ascribe to a fourth turning viewpoint, or the idea that, again, we are in a system where it is going to collapse of its own weight, new structures are going to have to take its place. And we need to have more dialogue and more vision about what those are going to look like, because I think that's the vision that's really going to pull us all into fixing the world. So that was really the motivation for writing the book.
Hold on. I have so many questions here. So you're proposing a new system here. So the system that we have today is, how would you define the system that we have today? And are you describing a new governmental system, a new economic model? Like, what is it exactly that you're describing?
Yes, because I think, we have created over the last several hundred years and are accelerating the pace of that, very centralized structures that have maximized the rewards of violence from a sovereign individual standpoint, if you read that book, and others. And, the new technology platforms are shifting the success of that model or the necessity of that model. And so I think we're going to see, again, if you look at most nation states around the world, they are not the most effective providers of services. Whether it is perpetually creating wars that we all have to pay for, even if we don't necessarily agree with, whether it is extracting our time and energy through inflation, whether it is creating regulatory structures that don't allow us to truly contribute in creating businesses and doing the activities of humanity that we want to do to do something, as we were talking about earlier. We can't just sit around and do nothing and add value. I think we're in a time that our governmental structures, perhaps our nation state structures, are going to be shifting and evolving. And so we need to have some real dialogue about that. Our financial structures are obviously going to change if we move to a Bitcoin system where we have a technology of money where you can really save. And investment is what investment historically is supposed to be, which is true capital allocation for entrepreneurs to create businesses and have products that are going to benefit humanity, rather than forcing a lot of misallocation of resources because of government policies or the control of interest rates or the way in which you manage these control structures so that you can be reelected again. We're on the precipice of major changes, and we need to be thinking about them, talking about them, and discussing what is it we want to build a structure on.
So,
because, yeah.
So, okay. And then you were talking about not going away from kind of like the sovereign individual type of mindset. You're saying like that isn't attractive. We should approach it in a different mindset, not from an individual perspective, but from a more collective perspective. Like, what did you mean by that exactly?
Well, we have to be very nuanced there. So, because I think many times people take the idea of sovereignty and say, I just want mine. I want to do with it what I want, and I don't want to bother with anybody else. And again, and I say in the book, if you want to live off the grid, off the land, in the backcountry, that's fine. But the reality is we live in an interconnected system and a web of life. All systems work in biology and cosmology, physics will tell us we live in an interconnected universe. So there's a mindset shift that has to both respect the unique nature of each individual and recognize that we are part of a system. And how we construct our social networks within a system for humanity should reflect valuing the individual and recognizing that we live in an interconnected web. It's not to say that we should be maximizing things for some collective. Clearly, we've seen that strategy fail abysmally and create more death and destruction than probably any other system has. So it's a new way of thinking about some of these things. And it's a little hard because we've not grown up in these systems. We've not talked about this. We've probably never had the opportunity in human history to be able to think this way. Yet we can learn from history, and we can learn from technology and new systems. And the upshot, I think, is that technology offers us the opportunity to have great abundance. And as Jeff Booth, I think, is the most articulate visionary in this, if prices fall to the marginal cost of production, then all those who may not be able to add as much value as others can still at least live a life that has value, that can take care of their families, that can feed themselves, and then explore some of the deeper meanings of life as they may choose. And, we're otherwise going to end up in some very difficult times if we have a huge class of the population. And this doesn't just mean manual laborers. I mean, if you listen to Eric Schmidt the other day talk about the development of AI, he could tell you that all the mathematicians and all the computer programmers are basically going to be out of work in 6 years. Then we're going to need to shift our way of thinking. And I think it's a huge opportunity to do what's more important in life than just commercial transactions. And, I've said, we joked about a Tesla or a Lambo, and I said, I think if you asked almost all the people on the planet what's more important, a Lambo or love, you get the same answer. So why can't we build systems more on that?
I love that. And I think Bitcoin is you're gonna be able. It's enabled by Bitcoin. You're gonna be able to do that with Bitcoin. I don't think you're gonna be able to do that with fiat. Anyways, guys, go check out Paul's book. He's the author of Money, Love, and Bitcoin. It's on Amazon right now. Get yourself a copy. Money, Love, and Bitcoin, Creating a Path to a Freer, Fair, and More Peaceful World. The author, Paul Rogers, joins us today on Simply Bitcoin. Really, really appreciate it. Guys, go check out the book. And before we wrap up, I do want to give a very special shout out to our sponsor, Bitcoin 2025. It's going to be the largest Bitcoin conference on the face of the planet. It's coming up next month, May 27th through the 29th at the Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. Embrace game theory. This is the world's largest Bitcoin conference. Big breaking, ultra breaking. Ross Ulbricht is a confirmed speaker. So if you want to see Ross speaking in person, go to Bitcoin 2025, Las Vegas, Nevada. Simply Bitcoin will be having a booth. We will be at the conference floor. The entire Simply Bitcoin crew will be there. Nico, Opti, Dante, Rustin, Jacob, Sophie, and many more. So you guys definitely don't want to miss the Bitcoin 2025 conference in Las Vegas, Nevada at the Venetian Hotel, May 27th through the 29th. Embrace game theory. Hope to see you guys there. Anyways, guys, if you guys enjoyed today's show, make sure to smash that like button. Consider subscribing if you feel like we provided you guys some value. We love you all. And of course, we'll be back tomorrow, the Friday show, the last episode of the week of Simply Bitcoin Live. Until then, peace out, everybody. Go outside, enjoy your family, eat some good food, touch some grass, touch some sand, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.